in our health coaching world, we do a lot of the same kind of things of like, you have to have stuff prepared. And that means at some point, I like to say over the weekend, we're going to like cut up some vegetables and fruits and just have them on hand. That's for like adults and kids likewise. Make it easy on them. On the other side, having the availability of some of the things that I feel like the households where you don't have any of the quote unquote like junk food or fun food or whatever you want to call it, it's so much more interesting to go out and get that.
Welcome to Salad with a Side of Fries. I'm your host, Jenn, talking wellness and weight loss for real life. We're here to clear up the myths, misinformation, bad science, and marketing to teach you how to eat and how to cheat. Are you ready? I'm having salad with a side of fries. Hey friend, welcome back to another episode of Salad with a Side of Fries. I'm Jenn Trepic, your host and health coach, here with you every week. And if you're a longtime listener, you know that I am single and I don't have kids and I live in New York City. And I recognize that my day-to-day cooking habits, or I should probably say my day-to-day ordering food habits, and even the size of my kitchen are not necessarily like yours. Many of you have at least one other person in your household. Even more of you have many other eaters eating out of your kitchen. So we're going to focus on that today. How do we accommodate a variety of preferences and needs from one kitchen, especially when we're not a chef, right? And especially if you want to eat as a family, right? It can be a challenge. So to discuss this with us, I have a wonderful guest for you. She's a health coach, blogger, and marketing expert. She's a lifelong learner who keeps a pulse on the latest health and lifestyle trends and has over 13 years worth of experience teaching group exercise classes. Taking her background in marketing and experience working for a variety of print publications, she moved into the digital space working with the large food blog called 100 Days of Real Food. And she worked hand in hand with a variety of healthy food brands. Over the past 10 plus years, she's fine-tuned her definition of healthy eating for her entire family, including her 4 kids, ranging in age from 12 to 19. And she launched her own blog, easyrealfood.com, to share food sensitivity-inspired recipes that are easy and achievable for busy families to recreate. She has a passion for encouraging healthy eating and living for all. She believes that everyone can have a starting point. It's never too late. And that while everyone's journey may be different, the small changes that we can make lead to huge, profound results. Sound familiar, right? So when she's not blogging or crafting recipes, you'll find her running, hiking, practicing yoga and Pilates, or traveling and enjoying family time. So joining us today from South Charlotte, please help me welcome Kiran Dodeja Smith.
Woo!
Right. The crowd erupts. Yeah.
Right.
Welcome, welcome. We're finally doing this.
I know. Thank you so much for having me. And I know we had like such a fun conversation. I almost wish we had the press play the last time we spoke. So I'm really glad to be here.
I know. And there have been so many updates also since then. So we'll catch everybody up. We'll talk about the whole thing and we'll start with your story and then go from there. But really quick, so I don't have to interrupt you too many times, we'll tell our members what they're getting first. Sound good?
Awesome.
Okay. So members, the November recipes all month are about helping you have your healthiest holidays. So I have 2 for you this week. One is for cranberry vinaigrette. It is a delicious dressing that you can keep in your fridge all season long. I think this dressing might even get your non-salad and veggie eaters interested in salads and veggies. And then for full days when you need to have dinner on the table too, I'm sending you a recipe for crock pot chicken with butternut squash, pears, and cranberries. I love like a throw it all in, set it and forget it kind of meal. This is absolutely that. It's also paleo for those of you looking for paleo recipes. Oh, and I should say that if you're paying attention, you might be able to guess the subject of this week's nutrition nugget. Did you catch it? All right, so here's the deal. If you want these recipes, make sure you're a member. Go to glow.fm/salad with a side of fries. For $10 a month, you get weekly recipes, a monthly article or tool, extra discounts from me and our partners, plus access to live Q&A sessions. It really is a total deal and a steal when you take advantage of those full offerings. You're going to save far more than that $10 cost. I say it every time, but it's a no-brainer way to show yourself that your health is a priority. Plus, being a member supports this podcast and this community, so we can continue to do this with you every week. So remember, you're going to go to glow.fm/salad with a side of fries, or forget remembering the whole URL. You can click the link in the show notes. Once you're there, you click support now, enter your email and payment info, click subscribe, and you're all set. You'll get this week's recipes for the cranberry vinaigrette and for the paleo crockpot chicken with butternut squash, pears, and cranberries. Okay, Karen, so tell us your story, because even in your teen years, you were interested in fitness and nutrition, but it wasn't always your career.
No. Yeah. And it's funny. I have to say my teens is when it really started, but I do want to preface I know you have a lot of moms also who are listening who will relate with this, that I myself was a pretty picky eater when I was younger. My father is Indian and my mom is American. And so we had a lot of Indian food. My mom really did a great job of like picking up on the Indian cooking. And it wasn't for me at that age. And my parents kind of let me go. And there was a stretch where I literally for 6 days, all I ate was spaghetti. So this is the spoiler alert. There's hope. You know, if you've got a picky eater, I'm proof that you can come full circle. But it really started when I was 13. So my mom had one older brother, and she stopped working when he was born. And so fast forward, I turned 13 and she was going to go back to work. And all of a sudden, you know, we'd had all these home cooked meals for so long. And then her priorities, her days were different, everything. So I kind of saw opportunity and I said, hey, I'll cook dinner for everybody. And I negotiated a pay rate of $3 per meal with my dad. And so there it began, you know, and I can't say that they were amazing, but I had just a lot of fun, like looking at recipes. Back then it was like magazines or cookbooks, that kind of thing. And then helping with the grocery shopping, and there were meals on the table, right? I mean, again, it was just a huge learning curve, but that's really when it began. And so my interest never went away from that. It just kind of transitioned. I would say, I was trying to think back. I think it was my senior year in high school. I ended up my mom with her job was working at a community college, and there was this chef school that was nearby. I grew up in Cleveland, and I was able to go for free because of her affiliation with the community college. So I went for this chef training, learned a lot of like knife basics and all that kind of stuff, just stuff that I could bring back to the kitchen. Fast forward, went to college. Around that point, I was really getting a little more interested in like fitness and working out, which again looks very different than college students today. I think there's a lot more available. So I had the interest in exercise, and also was reading some of the labels at school. I was frustrated with, you know, I would go to the food hall, and I remember specifically one time trying to it was like a salad with grilled chicken, and like, oh, this is going to be a healthy choice, right? It's like grade F chicken, something. And it was kind of like a light bulb moment of, wow, you know, it's like, it's such a big step to get educated. And then once you're educated, it's still difficult, you know? So all these little learning parts, I guess, I think are important, because we all have our own journey with really understanding food,
totally.
Right? So did the college thing. I ended up teaching during that time was when I started teaching group exercise. Fast forward, I moved to Charlotte. Husband, I got married, had my first daughter. She was 1 month old on our first anniversary. So that was a whole new thing of like, all right, now like during pregnancy, I need to eat well for both of us.
Yep.
And then afterwards, you're feeding somebody else, and that's a whole new importance. So we had 4 kids within 7 years. So during that time, I had Item magazine. That was kind of more the publishing type of time of my career. And towards right after having my 4th child, I transitioned from that. And that's when I started working with 100 Days of Real Food. And so, you know, up until that point, my definition of healthy had been so many different things. And I'm guessing you probably see that with your clients too. And I think it's fair, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think it follows, oftentimes our definition of health follows what we're seeing. Like when we were kids, it was a lot of what was in magazines, and then TV commercials and movies and actors. And today it's a combination of, I think, like the Instagram influencer thing and a lot of the, I almost hate to say it this way, but almost like the fear mongering around health related topics on social media that kind of lead us all over the place. Was that your experience too?
Definitely. And I think even that little part that I mentioned with, how it's a challenge, even when you think you know what you're doing, and then you're like, wow, I don't even know what's in this food. But I think there's so many different, we're just bombarded with ideas and what's right. And at that point, I didn't realize there's no one right? I mean, it's very individualized. Yeah. So it had taken on so many different shapes. To date myself, my mom, even when I was growing up, had done the cabbage soup diet and had me do that with her, right? So, I mean, it was like so many
Luckily, I liked cabbage soup, so I was fine on the cabbage soup diet, but then it's also sort of like scarring, and then you're like, I never want to eat cabbage soup for a very long time.
Right. Like all the low-fat craze, all of that. Like I jumped on every bandwagon there, just, So fast forward, I started working 100 Days of Real Food, and that was really a very pivotal moment for me. For those who are not familiar with 100 Days of Real Food, the idea behind it is really like, if your grandmother didn't eat it, then we should probably not be having that either. It's very much like, no refined oils and foods and no processed foods and all that kind of stuff. Very simple. Like there was no gluten-free, didn't follow like any of that. It was really like whole foods, 5 ingredients or less, super simple to follow. That was a really, really just easy way to think about it. Now, I am lactose intolerant, so that's always been, I've always been dairy-free for that reason. So some of the things, didn't fall in line, but it really simplified the way of thinking for me. And that it was at that point, like not only for me, but also for my kids. So went with that. Like I said, I'm dairy-free just because of the lactose part. At one point, I did go gluten-free and found that I felt really good from it. I had a lot of good experiences. Again, like, this is not to say that I believe everybody should be. In fact, like in my family of 6, it's myself and then 2 of my daughters are. I had an additional daughter who was. We'll talk about that. My story, but we'll get to that. For reference, for anybody listening, my daughters are the older ones. So 19, 17, 15, and my son is 12. So
this brings up to where I wanted to go next, which is, so in your one house, you have 4 kids. You mentioned your dairy-free and at times have been gluten-free. Talk to us about all of the different, whether it's allergies and necessary restrictions or preferences. Like give us, because I know your husband's a meat eater, right? Like
yes,
give us the rundown of the variety of things you're accommodating at home every day.
Okay. All right. I'll start with myself because I feel like I'm probably the worst of the bunch. I'm gluten-free and dairy-free. And I have not eaten red meat or pork in 30 years. So that's me aside. My first daughter currently eats everything. We will get to this. She is recently out of treatment for an eating disorder. So prior to that, there were a lot of restrictions there. My second daughter is gluten-free and dairy-free. My third daughter is just gluten-free. And she is definitely sensitivity-based. My son eats everything. My husband eats everything. Total carnivore and eats meat at every meal. So it's a lot. It sounds like a lot, but I think there's a way to manage the madness, which I'm sure we'll get to as well.
Yeah. So take us there, right? So in managing the madness, and maybe I sort of have a couple questions going around in my head at the moment. One is, how do we potentially make one thing and have it work for everybody? And then even looking at, what was different when they were younger versus now where they're a little bit older and maybe they're doing some of their own things.
Yes. Okay. So I will say, I'm going to get your second question first, because having teen girls just brings in a whole element of, like, again, the body image and stuff like that. There's a lot of drivers. And I do think my son's 12, but I do think there are positives to this as well. But I think there's a lot of fear with some of the different foods, whether it's sugar or it's gluten or dairy, and so saying that this is bad and this is bad for my skin. It's a lot of like the appearance part, which again can be flipped to positive.
Yeah.
And then for the boys, and I really don't mean to stereotype at all. It's just, I've got him, he's 12. He does play sports. And I think there's a positive aspect of, like, I frame it in, how are we going to fuel you best?
Yep.
So the kids, as they've gotten older and they see the information, and they're gathering it from who knows where, a lot of TikTok, which there's just so much out there, and who knows whether it's reliable. It's a lot of managing that. But at the end of the day, and this kind of answers both of them, keeping things basic is the easiest way to do it. So, what I found to be helpful in terms of, you said making one thing that appeals to everybody, it might be having, like, I made chili last night. It was with ground turkey, something that everybody eats, getting a lot of vegetables in there. And then if people want cheese on top of it, go for it. That's on the side. If they want to add sour cream, that's on the side, right? Like if you want tortilla chips, if you want to have a piece of bread, like that kind of stuff. But it's more like make your main meal so that it satisfies everybody, or I'll make vegetarian stuff and then I'll have batch cooked a bunch of grilled chicken or something. My husband can throw that in, but it doesn't mean like the rest of us are eating as much meat as he wants to.
Got it. And so there was a phrase you used and it escaped me, but it was not just managing the madness, but also, you were talking about keeping it basic.
Yeah.
But basic doesn't have to be boring.
Right.
Right. I think a big challenge is people feel like, okay, chili, great idea. And then they're like, I have no idea what's next.
Yes. Yeah, totally. Then what? Okay. So I think, and I know you do this with your clients. It's like the cook once, eat twice. What's that phrase? That kind of thing.
Yeah.
So you just kind of repurpose things. And I really hope we do leftovers, and I hope for everyone else's sake, it just makes your life a lot easier. So if that's possible, you mentioned the crock pot dish that you're giving this week, right? So, all right. So you have that, and forgive me, it was with butternut squash and
chicken. And then it had pears, cranberries. I think that was it.
Okay. So taking that, and you make that, and then one night you're serving it with rice, and then another you're serving it like over a salad, or, with greens mixed in or something like that. And so having more of your main dish, like the chili, any of the crock pot things, I feel like are really doable to really vary up, making some form of meatballs, and, you're putting them on a pizza. That could be gluten-free also. That doesn't need to have the cheese. That could be on top of, again, some type of salad. That could be on top of some kind of grain, even if it's rice or it is quinoa or gluten-free or, something like that. And the other thing that I feel like is really helpful, so whether it's like more of your one pot type of dish, is having different bars, like a taco bar where it's got all of the stuff and people make the variation their own. Having a salad bar, that's such a great tip for getting kids to eat vegetables, is giving them choice.
Yeah.
And letting them make their own. So it's kind of like killing two birds. You're getting everybody to, eat according to what they enjoy, not only like sensitivity wise or what their allergies, restrictions, whatever those are. And they're happy about it because they get to choose what's in it.
Yeah, I love that. And so these all feel like dinner time things. How did you handle making lunches and breakfast time? And even now that they're older, and maybe like how you've evolved that?
So the lunch thing is a great one, because when I was working with 100 Days of Real Food, and I'm trying to think back, this is a good like 8 to 10 years. So I feel like now there's a lot of resources, but at that time, we did a lot of, Lisa, who I worked with, would share pictures of her lunch, and people just ate it up because we're always looking for ideas. We can have like a stack of 100 cookbooks, but still you're looking for ideas, and just that instant, like in your face, is generally pretty helpful. So I was like, hey, why don't we come up with some kind of a system, if you will, to really hold people's hands and just help them understand, like, here's how to make lunches really easily. So I had written this first ebook, and it turned into 5 different ebooks with the same type of system that works really well of, on the weekend, you cook 2 meals, if you will, or dishes, and 1 baked good. And then it's really just assembling them throughout the week. So for instance, I'm trying to think I don't have any of them off the top of my head, but like taco cups was one of them, and like lasagna roll-ups, I believe. And then maybe like say some kind of muffins. And then it's really like just throughout the week, mixing and matching them with, a vegetable, a fruit, and then something else to add in. So really simplifying it by make a couple things that are set just for lunches during the weekend, and having your kids, even the ebooks had like diagrams and everything. So it's pretty easy to follow, but leftovers, having things that they can pull together. I mean, full disclosure, I'm not 100% clean in the house. So there's definitely like, we have the frozen tacos from Costco, and on some days that's what it is for them, with like, they add a fruit and vegetable and we're good to go, you know?
Yeah. Well, first of all, I think that's really human.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, nobody's house is perfectly anything. We just think it is from what we see, of the world and our perception. But I want to point out one of the things you said, which is you have this main element of sort of like the entree, but you're having them add to it a fruit, a vegetable, or whatever. So now that they're packing their own lunches, how do you guide that? Like, how do you have that conversation? Because I'm not gonna lie, when I was in middle school, I brought a couple dollars of school, to lunch, to school for lunch. I would have Cheetos and Reese's peanut butter cups or a bagel and cream cheese. Like, I could do lunch out of a vending machine for $3.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So
do not recommend. P.S.
Yeah. No. I also been there, done that. I get it. Yeah. I think it's availability on both ends. And so first and foremost, I think in our health coaching world, we do a lot of the same kind of things of like, you have to have stuff prepared. And that means at some point, I like to say over the weekend, we're going to like cut up some vegetables and fruits and just have them on hand. That's for like adults and kids likewise. Make it easy on them. On the other side, having the availability of some of the things that I feel like the households where you don't have any of the quote unquote like junk food or fun food or whatever you want to call it, it's so much more interesting to go out and get that if you don't have it. So, I try to focus more on the balance of it. Like, yeah, we've got the Costco tacos. Yeah, we've got the Costco gluten-free chicken nuggets, whatever, probably not the best to have it every day. I mean, like if you want to. And so I kind of put it on them. I feel like I've raised them with a foundation and the education. And then some of it's up to them, right? Because if you don't position it that way, it's the moment they're getting out of the house that all things go crazy.
Right. And I think you've also helped them see that like what needs to go into that lunch is the protein, fruit, vegetable, and sort of framing that. And then it's like checking those boxes.
Yes. Yeah.
Right.
There's so many great resources out there, whether it's like, I mean, I'm sure you can find these on Pinterest or, there's different like checklists, that you start them young with, like, yeah, like the protein, the dairy, the vegetable, whatever, however you want to do that. And they also have like, I don't know if they're still really popular, but I used to use those Yum boxes. And it literally had the diagrams on there of like the different food groups and with the little compartments. So
yeah.
And
easyrealfood.com.
Exactly. Yeah.
Right. Okay. So I want to shift into, first of all, one of the things that you've talked about is the importance of family dinner and having everybody around the table. And I know that as kids grow up, that's increasingly difficult. Mm-hmm. And then I also want to talk about, siblings and what somebody needs versus what another person needs, or even when the kids are not in your house, like all the non-food things that come up in this. So I want to shift to that, but let's do that after we take a quick break for a message from our partner for this episode. Okay, great. Big thanks to Snap Cleaning Products for supporting Salad with a Side of Fries. Make household and industrial cleaning a snap with their eco-friendly, economical, multi-purpose Snap products. Snap's concentrated multi-purpose formulas perform light to industrial strength jobs all in one bottle. Snap products give you the cleaning power of a variety of cleaners, saving you time, money, and valuable storage space. And Snap products were developed with the environment in mind, using plant-based ingredients that are biodegradable, phosphate-free, non-toxic, and bottled in recyclable containers. So in thinking about today's episode, all the cooking that we're talking about and all the cooking for the holidays, right, this time of year, I cannot recommend highly enough the Snap dishwashing liquid. It's like the easy button for cleanup. A couple drops of the dishwashing liquid in the sink or in the pan or the pot, and fill it with warm water, let it sit for a few minutes, and then everything just wipes clean. It makes cleanup so simple. Honestly, even your kids or other family members could totally do it. This makes it simple. The soap is also gentle enough to be used on your finest dishes. And I should mention, it's only $11.95 for a 32-ounce bottle. And like I said, you use drops at a time. So it's crazy economical also. They do also have the automatic dishwasher crystals, and that one's $9 for 30 ounces. So these prices are also before your 10% off. So because you're a Salad with a Side of Fries listener, you get 10% off and free shipping. Simply text the word CLEAN, CLEAN, to 844-947-4846. You'll receive the link and coupon code right to your phone. Again, simply text the word CLEAN to 844-947-4846 to try Snap, in particular, the dishwashing liquid and the automatic dishwashing crystals. 10% off and free shipping. All the things are yours. It's a toll-free number. Standard text and data rates may apply. Okay, Karen, so maybe we preface this piece. You mentioned it before, maybe a little bit of a trigger warning, although we're certainly in a safe space and, can certainly talk about this in the positive. But your daughter did have an eating disorder and has gone through treatment. So we are going to talk about that a little bit. If you have other people listening where you are, just know that. So with that said, will you share with us a little bit about, with your kids, and it was your oldest daughter, right? So how did her challenges impact everybody else?
Oh my gosh. Yeah. Are you okay if I give a little bit of a quick story on?
For sure.
So basically, just to kind of paint the picture. So it started, she's 19, and this started pretty much right after lockdown, I would say. And I mentioned that I've had this healthier foundation, and obviously I've worked in like the food space for a while. I say that because as a mom, it's hard to not have some like guilt around this and thinking like, I thought this whole time that I'm trying to get them to eat healthfully, like, oh my gosh, did I cause this? But around the time of lockdown, she got super, super focused on eating well and just really paying attention to what she was eating. Some exercise, never like too much into that, but it fast forward and she lost 25% of her body weight. And we probably should have sent her to treatment sooner. I think we had to go through a lot of different things until we all got to that point. We tried the family-based therapy where you sort of emulate the programming at home, and that it just wasn't a success. So she did spend the summer at a treatment facility for anorexia, and she's in a really good place right now. But
awesome.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, your question on how it affected the family, I mean, tremendously. I guess from my standpoint, of course, that guilt part that I mentioned of, wow, like this whole time, like all my work with 100 Days of Real Food, and now I'm a health coach, and like I would share these tidbits of information with them, thinking that it's helpful. And did I add to it? I don't know. I don't know that I'll ever know.
Right.
She says I didn't. And of course, the professionals are like, no, this is totally not your fault at all,
Right.
Sure. Okay. But, I have two other teenage daughters. And at first I thought, well, for sure that this will never impact them because they're seeing how difficult this is for all of us. And I just don't think there's any guarantees. The teensies age, I think, just like us talking about, all of the inundation of, all these different messages and perfection and everything that we see, it's difficult.
Yeah. And I think everybody brings to this stuff that we don't even know about. And I think a lot of time, right? Like, I think probably even your own concern or guilt or whatever, feeling like we created this, like we all show up bringing our stuff to it. And I think we don't necessarily recognize all the other influences that are around. Mm-hmm. And it's the same thing, I think, even for your other kids, right? That they're having this one thing, but their friend groups and what they're seeing, it's different for each one of them. Mm-hmm. How did you handle even family meals? Like you have these family meals and obviously there's, I'm making up stories in my head and I'm not putting words in your mouth, correct me. But like, I could imagine at certain times, the kids felt like there were one set of rules for one person and another set of rules for everybody else. Mm-hmm. What recommendations or guidance would you have for people? Or even how did you guys handle that yourselves?
So trying to think back because meals started to get weird. They started to get weird because it was some of her personal parts of it were she would eat very slow. Or for a while when we did that family-based therapy, I was never familiar with this whole concept, but basically the parent, which was me, I plated and chose all of her meals, which is really hard. Especially when you're dealing with an eating disorder, to have somebody like your mom say like, hey, this is what you need to eat and you need to finish everything, so that was, we'll both agree that was really just not a positive thing for our relationship. And it affected everybody else at the table too, because there was, she was upset, there were some tears, it was really a long time. And so meals were not normal for a really long time. And then if we weren't talking about it, it was a little bit of the elephant in the room. Like, gosh, why is her plate so different? And, so I've gone through this big transition of this really heavy messaging to not necessarily like all bets are out the window, but I had to come to a place in my mind where I just said, like I said earlier, I've built the foundation. I've given them the tools that they need. Should they choose to use them in the future, they've got them. And you know what? If they don't, then I still have to feel okay that I've done my job. I mean, I said earlier on in the conversation, I was complete opposite. I was a very picky eater. I didn't have any of the foundation or the education, and I found it. So I think there's just no guarantees. I think, my messaging to other moms is like, do your part and give them the education. It's a tough space to navigate, really. Try to give them the tools and the resources that you can. But I think having some looser boundaries is helpful. The black and white, at least for this point in my life, is just, it's not realistic.
Yeah. And just to point a couple things out for everybody. So we have a couple resources for you. There was an episode we did that was health and nutrition for kids and teens, which was focused on communicating with kids where we're already seeing some health challenges or where we're maybe trying to undo some learned behaviors. And then we also did an episode with Mulaney Rogers, who is an eating disorder specialist. That episode was called It's a Fine Line Between Constructive and Destructive. We did that back in July of 2020, but it's still there for you wherever you listen. We have these resources here for you. And I think one of the things that seems to be tying all of this together, whether it's, your recipes or, what's happening with all the different eating patterns and habits, is family dinner, right? So it sounds like you guys make this a priority and it's always been a thing. I guess I'm curious, like, what role does family dinner play in everything? And then how do you, provided it's a priority, how do you help do that? Or what does it look like as everybody's getting older and schedules are all over the place?
So it seems to vary year to year, or season to season, I should say. I had my second daughter was a dancer for 11 or 12 years. And so up until this year, she actually quit this year. She's a senior and just said she wasn't going to dance after this. So she quit. And that, again, I think I'm just generally laid back, but I'm just kind of like, okay, it's fine, So she was not present for a lot of dinners in the prior years because she would get home at 9:30 at night. So, and that just, everybody else was there. It was unfortunate, but it was part of it. My son right now, he has he has soccer until like 7:30. Sometimes there's volleyball. Like, we'll wait for each other, and it's not ideal, but we'll eat at 7:30, or if few people eat earlier, we still sit at the table together while the other ones are eating. I don't want to paint the picture that it's always like this super connected, amazing conversation, but it's conversation and it's a way to connect. And it's a priority, it's like, It's the one time, even if it's 30 minutes for us to try to get together. So my middle two daughters have boyfriends, and there was a little while in this that it was like, they were gone. I said, and finally it was like, you know what? No, there's no boyfriends during this time. And that was just a hard stop, because it is like that one time during the day where I think we can all sort of chill for a little bit and have some kind of conversation.
Yeah, I like that what you're sharing is not just the boundaries around it and deciding what those boundaries are, but also that it's not perfect. There are some nights where somebody's not there, or where not everybody's eating, but we're taking a few minutes to sit at the table together. Or, maybe it only happens once a week or certain times. It's not necessarily every day, like when kids are little and,
right,
less things going on or less independence.
Right. I mean, food at the end of the day, it's about connection also. It's so easy to just have your meal in front of the TV or in front of the computer or with your phone. But I mean, I think some of those basics are really important to hold on to. We're also like a no screen at the dinner table. I mean, it's whatever works for you, though. Like you said, if it's one night a week, that's awesome. If you like having the TV on at the same time and you guys are connecting on a show, then that's still connectivity,
Totally. So I guess wrapping this up, a final thought, anything we missed or a final thought or something on this theme of one kitchen, many eaters?
I think the biggest thing is to do what works for you, and if that means using some type of a service to get dinner on the table, like the Hungry Root or Purple Carrot kind of, if that works, awesome. If it means that you're able to cook one night a week, that's awesome. If you are a super ambitious cook and you're cooking 6 days a week, great. I think just doing what's right for you is probably what I would say the biggest takeaway. Give yourself some grace. I think there's a lot of pressure that we put on ourselves a lot of times. And so I think just realizing that what works for you right now, it might not look the same next year, in 5 years, but do what's best for you in the moment.
Yeah, I love that. It's lifting that weight that we can put on ourselves of what we think it needs to be in order to be effective.
Right.
Awesome. All right. So it's time for our short list of rapid fire off topic questions. Are you ready?
Okay. I hope so.
All right. What's the best thing you've done for your health this week? What's the naughtiest thing you've done related to your health this week?
Oh my goodness. Best thing I've done for health. Wednesday. You know what? I actually went on a walk outside with my daughter this morning, which was awesome for the connection. I just love being outside and getting the fresh air. So that was really positive. Let's see. I may or may not have been sitting in my pantry eating tortilla chips right before this call. So
sounds delicious, though.
Yeah.
All right. If you weren't a health coach and the founder of Easy Real Food, what would you do?
Oh my gosh, what would I do? Well, in addition, I also work with the functional medicine clinic in the marketing area. So I'm pretty fulfilled right now. I can't think of anything else that I'd rather be doing right now. I'm pretty happy.
Awesome. Your favorite book on any topic other than your area of expertise, or you could give us a fiction book too.
The Glass Castle.
Yeah. If you could cure one ailment, disease, or sickness, what would it be?
Ailment, sickness, or disease. Cancer is probably too broad, but my mom has been affected by cancer, so I would have to say somewhere in that realm.
If you were a superhero, what would be your superpower?
I'm the worst at these. I'm going really slow at these.
No, you're fine. I'm the worst. I respond to everyone, and it's like that's not rapid fire.
I'm thinking, this is having better intuition. I think I actually feel like I've got decent intuition, but being stronger in that would be amazing.
I love that. What's your biggest pet peeve?
Currently, my little dog, my little Maltipoo, barking at anything and everything and eating acorns when we're outside. That's just for today.
Right. All right. Last one. In your opinion, what's the next frontier in wellness?
Oh my gosh. Well, do you listen to Huberman at all,
Yeah.
Andrew?
Yeah.
Okay. Did you hear the latest with Mark Zuckerberg and his wife on this?
No.
Okay. This was mind blowing. I'm scared to think if it's going in that direction. So I would say more of just a better way of, I don't want to say diagnosing, I guess just seeing, really like having a better understanding of what's going on, and so that we can be more proactive. And
you're talking about like the full body scans, those things?
Yeah. Somewhat, but maybe taking that to another level. Some other way of really understanding what's going on, so we can just be more proactive.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, thank you for being here and sharing your story and your daughter's story. Tell everybody how to connect with you, where to learn more, get some of the tools that you have available too.
Yeah. Thank you for having me. My website is easyrealfood.com. I'm on Instagram. My handle is @easyrealfood. Generally share a lot of easy recipes right there. There's some different variations within. I am on Facebook as well. My handle is @realfoodeasy.
Awesome. And we'll put links to everything in the episode notes, so it's super easy for people. Just thank you again. Appreciate your perspective and your time.
Absolutely. Thank you again for having me.
Yeah. So everybody, your nutrition nugget on Friday. Did you guess it and put it together from the recipes? On Friday, we're talking about cranberries. And people are like, ugh, I hate cranberry sauce. And I was like, I know. So it's a food for the season. But then in thinking about it, I was also thinking like people often use cranberry juice for cocktails and cranberry juice for urinary tract infections. And so maybe we want to look at this a little bit, right? What are the benefits that this fruit and then its byproducts can offer us? So we're going to talk all about it on Friday. So wherever you're listening now, click the plus sign or the follow button, and then your app will notify you when the nutrition nugget goes live on Friday. Well, as always, everybody, I'm your host, Jenn Trepeck. Connect with me on Instagram or all social media. I'm at Jenn Trepeck, JennTrepeck. Website is asaladwithasideoffries.com. Whether it's the website or social media, send a message. I want to hear your takeaways and ideas or your questions. This is also the easiest way to learn more about working with me as your health coach or checking out our merch. So merch is also available at asaladwithasideoffries.com. Kiran Dodeja Smith, thank you again for being here.
Thank you so much for having me. Always enjoy talking with you. So I really appreciate it.
Absolutely. Likewise. And friend, if you are not already a member, join our membership by going to glow.fm/saladwithasideoffries. This shows your support for this podcast and this community, but most importantly, it supports your health. You'll get this week's recipes for the cranberry vinaigrette and the paleo crockpot chicken with butternut squash, pears, and cranberries. So until next week, remember that with a plan for ourselves, for our shopping, right, and some communication, we can keep everybody happy eating all the things according to their personal preferences. Well, friends, that's it for today's episode of Salad with a Side of Fries. Congratulations for making yourself and your health a priority. Thanks so much for joining us. Be sure to click subscribe or follow on your favorite podcast platform. Share us with a friend, and we'll be back next week. Always remember, you deserve it, and you are worth it. Happy healthy.